The story begins with Yuma getting rejected at a job interview. On his way back, he notices a news broadcast about dungeons, reminding him of how they first appeared 10 years ago. Since then, the world has adapted to these dungeons and has started to cash in the goods obtained from them. At first, Yuma wanted to become a dungeon conqueror as well, but after failing multiple times, he gave up. Nonetheless, he is on his way to the job interview at McDonald's when suddenly, the ground beneath him disappears, causing him to fall underground. Realizing that this must be a dungeon, Yuma starts to wonder if he's dead meat. Knowing that he'll starve to death if he doesn't find a way out, Yuma decides to move deeper into the dungeon. Ultimately, he comes across a room where a skill book is present. Apparently, these books grant powers to those who read them, and the power that is granted to Yuma is summoning magic. With that, he tries out his new power and ends up summoning a hot mommy all for himself. She believes that Yuma must have talent, considering he was chosen to be her master, and questions if he has been training at this place. Seeing the confused look on his face, the girl realizes that this is actually the book room. After Yuma explains everything that happened, the girl mentions how he's not an ordinary human being. Moreover, she introduces herself as Snow White, and Yuma asks her about the stuff she can do. To start things off, Snow begins getting a little too close to Yuma's face, which the Gunner doesn't seem to mind. But to his disappointment, she just touches her forehead with his, allowing her to read his memories. Nonetheless, Yuma lets her know that he is unable to fight, and when Snow mentions that humans are pretty fragile, Yuma argues by saying that she isn't carrying any weapons. She informs him that fighting style doesn't require relying on weapons. Anyway, as they continue making their way forward, Snow uses her abilities and freezes a goblin to its demise. Seeing this makes Yuma realize that Snow is a spirit, and informs her that those who conquer dungeons are revered as heroes in this world. However, he gets interrupted mid-speech when she comments on how choosing this path was a mistake. When Yuma asks what she means, Snow points at the dungeon boss right in front of them. Furthermore, she tells him that they don't stand a chance against the boss, and the way back is also blocked. Having no other choice, she decides to buy him some time so Yuma can escape and starts by blocking the boss's attacks. But to her surprise, Yuma ends up distracting the boss monster and gets hit by one of the attacks. Soon after, he wakes up in a room and finds Snow on top of him, who somehow managed to heal him. Luckily, they are currently in a sanctuary where monsters can't approach. Additionally, she informs him that there is a way for them to survive, and that is for them to form a true contract, which will allow her to use her full powers. But for that, he will have to inject his essence into her. Realizing what she means, Yuma freaks out, and when Snow wonders how they should get started, Yuma asks her to let him grab a melon or two, and to his shock, she complies with his request. With that, she lies on the ground with her top on display, and after getting on top of her, Yuma begins kissing her, which eventually leads to him plugging his switch to her socket. Once they are done, the contract is completed, and the only thing left to do is to defeat the boss and head back home. Concerned, Yuma asks if she's sure they can really win and gets told by Snow that he'll understand when he sees it. Afterward, they get out of the sanctuary, and with just a single attack, Snow manages to freeze the boss monster against whom they were struggling earlier. Seeing her fight makes Yuma realize that this is the true power of his contracted spirit, which he finds to be really incredible and beautiful. Meanwhile, Snow reveals another one of her attacks, and after telling the boss monster to go to sleep, she attacks it with the attack, putting an end to the monster for good. Yuma, who experienced this all, compliments Snow for being awesome and gets told by her that if she were serious, causing an ice age in just a week would be no big deal for her. After hearing this, he makes up his mind not to make her angry anytime in the future. Eventually, they are able to get out of the dungeon, and when Snow asks about his plan moving forward, Yuma suggests going back to his house for now. However, the thoughts of them living in his tiny one-bedroom apartment enter his mind along with all the other naughty stuff. But before that, she decides to contact the Dungeon Administration Bureau, which is a private company responsible for managing every dungeon present in Japan. While it's not compulsory, it's an unspoken rule that if one finds a dungeon, it's their job to report it. Noticing that huge building, Snow asks about which floor the bureau is on, and gets told that they own the entire building. This makes her figure that they must be making a ton of bread. On the other hand, Yuma starts to believe that they might not trust someone who has not made an appointment, and to solve this, an idea comes to Snow's mind. With that being said, she shows them the giant magical core they obtained after defeating the boss monster, which shocks the girls present at the reception. Turns out this magical core is obtained after a monster is defeated and is generally used as an energy source. Nonetheless, Snow explains that they got this after conquering a dungeon and asks them to take her to the director. Once in the waiting room, Snow questions about the extent to which this administration is involved in conquering dungeons. After informing her that it's first class in Japan, Yuma wonders if there's a reason she's so passionate about conquering dungeons. When Snow doesn't give him a clear answer, Yuma gets silent, which makes Snow wonder why he is not asking for the details. Yuma lets her know that it's obvious she must have a reason not to talk about it. Just then, their conversation is interrupted by a man with a joke of a mustache who introduces himself as Yanagita, the director of the bureau. Realizing that he's a former member of the first exploration party, Yuma gets pumped and nervously introduces himself to the director. However, before Yanagita even gets the chance to speak, Snow lets him know that she will freeze the entire building to uncover the secrets he's keeping. Confused, Yanagita questions what she's talking about when, unexpectedly, a hottie appears right behind the two of them, talking about how that would be a problem. After getting no reaction, she apologizes for the joke, saying that she couldn't help but intervene after finding out about the interesting duo who had come. Annoyed, Snow mocks her sense of humor, to which the girl replies by apologizing, reassuring Snow that she wouldn't do anything that brings harm to the company. Yanagita then introduces the girl as Mina, the president of the Dungeon Administration Bureau. Being the president, she was the first person in Japan to conquer a dungeon. Hearing this, Snow also apologizes for her rude attitude and asks them to accept the magical core as an apology. Curious, Yanagita questions about where she found it and gets informed by Snow that they obtained it after conquering the dungeon that emerged some time ago. When Yanagita asks if she can give them the magical core, Snow agrees, but adds that she has some conditions. The first is that they will provide them with a spacious home with no surveillance. When Yanagita asks what would happen if he were to assign surveillance, Snow lets him know that there won't be any guarantee of his life then. Nonetheless, she continues and mentions the second condition, which is to hire Yuma as an explorer. Puzzled, Yanagita asks why she wants to get him hired instead of herself. As from Snow, he can feel a very powerful magical energy, while from Yuma, all he senses is pure lustfulness. Having no other choice, Snow lets him know that she is a spirit that Yuma summoned, but these are things that humans don't yet fully understand. This makes Yanagita believe that while Snow possesses magic, Yuma doesn't seem to have any, but Mina disagrees. She then mentions how she can sense an extraordinary potential from him and passes a smile to Yuma, causing the desperate loner to blush. Furthermore, Yanagita is advised by Mina to expand his range of perception, to which he agrees and decides to give it another go. However, this time, he also senses an insane amount of energy coming out of Yuma and is freaked out by it. At this point, Yanagita is lost for words, making Mina laugh and question what he is going to do now. Ultimately, he bows down and apologizes to Yuma for making a mistake in his perception. Moreover, he asks them to wait for some time until he reaches a conclusion. Snow gets up, allowing him the time, but before leaving, she questions the benefits the two of them will receive, as it's more than the strength they bring. Yanagita promises to keep this in his mind, and with that, the two of them leave. Once they are outside, Snow compliments it for being an excellent organization, one that could be the key to future dungeon conquests. Curious, Yuma asks why she didn't take a friendlier stance, as it could have been better, to which Snow replies by saying that they need to maintain a distance that keeps them neither enemies nor allies. Additionally, she didn't like the fact that they underestimated them. In a joking manner, Yuma wonders if she said all those things for his sake. This causes Snow to get embarrassed and tell Yuma that if they underestimate her master, that means they underestimate her too, which is why she said that. Nonetheless, he thanks her for everything and gets asked by Snow if he knows any good buyers for the magical core, because she wishes to establish a distribution network for the future. After thinking about it, Yuma suggests selling it online and decides to ask a friend of his who is pretty knowledgeable about this stuff. With that being said, he gives his friend a call and lets them know that he's on his way back home. To Yuma's surprise, as soon as he returns home, he witnesses the friend he was talking to waiting for him outside his house. Soon after, the three of them find themselves sitting in front of each other. Yuma introduces his friend Chika to Snow, who makes sure to apologize for the intrusion. Yuma then informs Chika that the girl in front of her is Snow, a spirit he met in the dungeon. Noticing the awkwardness between the two girls, Yuma begins to wonder if this is turning into a hassle and asks Chika if she is hungry. But instead of replying to Yuma, Chika calls Snow out, saying that it's hard for her to believe that Snow is a spirit and questions if this is one of Yuma's delusions. Having no other choice, Snow freezes a cup sitting in front of her and asks if this is enough proof for her. After seeing this, Chika rules out the possibility of it being Yuma's delusion. Furthermore, Snow asks Chika just to call her Snow instead of Snow White, deciding to call Chika by her first name as well. With that, the two of them shake hands on this, and simultaneously the pizza Yuma ordered arrives as well. While they treat themselves to some pizza, Chika is informed about the work they want her to do, including selling the magical cores. Curious, Snow asks if Chika is an expert on this stuff, to which Yuma agrees. He further says that she's skilled in web design, programming, and even hacking. Apparently, Yuma has already planned things out and suggests promoting the magical cores with videos. Given Snow's brutal face card, Chika believes that their videos can easily hit around 5 million subscribers in a week. When Yuma finds it hard to believe, Chika mentions that if they target an international audience and add English subtitles, they can even triple that figure easily. Being the loser he is, Yuma admits that his English is pretty terrible, but Chika reassures him that something like English is very easy for her. Yuma finds this very impressive, which confuses Snow, who questions if what she's saying is really that impressive. Yuma replies by telling her that, just from the revenue alone, one can live off it for a lifetime, just by selling magical cores. Hearing this makes Snow wonder if all videos can make that much money, but gets told by Yuma that it's not how it usually works. Overjoyed, Snow starts to believe that she must be unique, and while she's in her own world, Chika begins brainstorming and suggests that Yuma start his own business. However, Yuma finds this idea absurd and says how can a guy who was even rejected from McDonald's start his own business? Chika lets him know that she's serious about it and informs Yuma that a company has more credibility than an individual when big money is involved. Even Snow starts advising Yuma to do it, and ultimately he agrees. With that being said, Chika decides to handle all the technical stuff and tells Yuma that he will be the company president while she and Snow will be the employees. Seeing the surprised look on Yuma's face, Snow lets him know that she can't take that role, and if someone were to do that, it has to be him. Once everything is decided, Chika congratulates Yuma on becoming the president. Later that night, Yuma is walking Chika back to her house, holding an umbrella over her head since it's raining. He starts to discuss her payment for the help and gets told by Chika that anything is fine, as she's not hurting for money. However, Yuma argues that even between friends, money matters need to be handled properly. This brings a smile to her face, and Yuma wonders if all of his earnings from the videos would be enough, but Chika refuses to take that much. Yuma then suggests giving her 90 or 80%, but Chika still refuses. In the end, he offers her half the pay, saying that this will be his final offer. After it's settled, Yuma asks if he should handle the paperwork because he feels bad for leaving it all to her. But to his surprise, Chika mentions that she doesn't mind looking after him, making him wonder if she wants to be his stepmom or something. Chika then comments on how his shoulder must be getting wet, and even though he disagrees, she still hugs his arm to avoid it, saying that it would be a problem if he catches a cold. Nonetheless, Yuma asks her if she wants something as a reward for helping him out, and gets told by Chika that he can always pay her back with his body if it bothers him that much. Curious, Yuma asks if she means physical labor, to which she disagrees, and after getting closer, Chika whispers into his ear, saying that she's talking about the naughty stuff. Yuma gets shocked after hearing this, but gets told by Chika that she's just joking. Moreover, she mentions how beautiful Snow is and asks if Yuma thought she wouldn't notice the tension between the two of them. She then questions if the two of them have done the deed already. Flustered, Yuma tries to act like he doesn't understand what she means, and in the end, she lets go of his arm and begins walking away. When Yuma offers to walk her home, she refuses, saying that it's just a short walk from the station. Once she leaves, Yuma wonders if he was just teased, while Chika, who is on the train, calls Yuma a dense idiot. After returning home, Yuma notices Snow sitting at the table and figures that she has already settled in. He then starts to think about how the two of them are supposed to sleep, as there is only one bed in this house. Just then, Snow falls to the ground, and when Yuma checks up on her to see if she's all right, Snow grabs his face and starts burying his face in her jugs. After having the time of his life enjoying their softness, Yuma realizes that he is not a clueless virgin anymore and gets up, asking Snow about what happened. With a pretty tempting look on her face, she calls his name, causing Yuma to lose control over himself and take her to the bedroom. Afterward, he bows in front of Snow, apologizing for what he did. However, she asks him to lift his head, as she also lost herself for a moment. Yuma then wonders what led to this happening, and Snow mentions that it could be related to increasing his magic power in the dungeon. She further elaborates by saying that between a spirit and their summoner, there's a strong bond formed through magic, which can grow stronger or weaker depending on emotions. The deeper the bond, the more their magic power will grow as well. Moreover, she believes that deepening their connection is basically flirting, especially when the two of them stick this close to each other. Hearing this, Yuma realizes that their time together did feel like something couples do. However, he still can't understand why it happened, and Snow figures that coffee might be the trigger. According to her, after drinking this, she started finding him pretty adorable and figures that it must have been designed to make spirits and their master grow closer to each other. Nonetheless, she tells him not to worry about it, as what happened was an accident. This makes Yuma realize that it's like people doing this kind of stuff when they're drunk, but for Snow, the trigger is coffee. For the time being, he decides to make sure the house never runs out of coffee. The following day, Yanagita calls Yuma, informing him that he has prepared a house for him and has also registered it under his name. Furthermore, he informs him that regarding hiring Yuma at the company, it is going to be reconsidered, which Yuma doesn't seem to mind. Curious, Yanagita questions what he means by that and gets told by Yuma that he has started his own company. But at the same time, he wishes to stay on good terms with the Dungeon Management Bureau. Yanagita replies by saying that this is exactly the kind of deal they were hoping for and mentions that providing a residence alone doesn't quite cut it when he is being offered that kind of magical core. This is why Yanagita wishes to pay the difference, but Yuma interrupts him by saying that there is a different kind of favor he wants to ask. What he wants is for Yanagita to acquire Snow's family registry, which Yanagita understands as necessary for entering a dungeon or establishing a company. Moreover, Yanagita talks about the small dungeons that were discovered recently, but its entrance was completely frozen and wonders if it was their doing. Yuma agrees, saying that it was them, which Yanagita finds unbelievable and mentions how it wouldn't be wise to make enemies of him. Once he is done with the call, Snow appears, asking him about it. Yuma informs him that they got a new place to live, but he turned down their job offer. Snow is glad to hear that and comments on how everything seems to be working out smoothly. Meanwhile, Yanagita thinks about Yuma starting his own company and regrets not bringing them to the bureau from the start. Nonetheless, he plans to dispatch someone from his side, as they will need young talent with the know-how to run a business. Meanwhile, the two of them visit their new house for the first time, surprised to see how big it is. This makes Snow realize just how valuable magical cores are and remembers that they are said to be a source of energy. For now, Yuma decides to share the location of their new house with Chika, while on the other hand, Snow gets tired of waiting and starts getting fidgety. Seeing this, Yuma suggests exploring the house, which brings a smile to her face, and she starts running towards the house, mocking Yuma for being so childish. Soon after, Yuma also enters the house, glad that Snow seems happy when he notices a hot babe rocking those G-cups standing inside the house. Curious, he questions who she is, and after confirming that he is Yuma, she nervously lets Yuma know that the two of them will be working for a long time. Afterward, that girl introduces herself as Ayano, a 23-year-old who was sent by the Dungeon Management Bureau. Yuma also makes sure to introduce himself and gets told by Ayano not to be so formal and just call her employee or something. Ultimately, Yuma figures that Yanagita must have sent her, to which Ayano agrees, saying that she used to work in the accounting department, so she has some knowledge there and has also majored in law. Yuma is impressed by her qualifications and would like her to work for them, but before that, he asks Ayano if she's not spying on them or anything. Hearing this, Ayano freaks out and reassures Yuma that he's mistaken, begging him not to eliminate her. Yuma reassures her that no one will be taking her life and wonders just what Yanagita told her about him. Following that, he realizes that he hasn't offered her anything and decides to prepare some tea. Ayano stands up in a panic, telling Yuma that it's no problem, when accidentally she trips and falls right on top of him. Yuma, who is on the floor, feels something pretty soft and huge covering his face, and when Ayano tries standing up, she falls on top of him once again. Yuma is fully aware that at this rate, this could count as him taking advantage of her, and yet he can't fight this feeling, as it's not every day that he gets to have such huge milkers on his face. Just then, Snow opens the door in excitement, asking Yuma if he's here and talks about how the study room has a good atmosphere. She is about to add some other stuff, but stops after seeing what's taking place in front of her. Yuma can see her getting furious at them and tries telling her that it's a misunderstanding. However, she doesn't listen to a word he says and screams at them at the top of her lungs. Later, Snow understands everything after Yuma explains it to her, and she tells Ayano that if the Gunnar Lord tries doing anything freaky, Ayano should tell her immediately so she can freeze his crotch for good. Once that's settled, Ayano informs them that Snow's family registry has been taken care of, and now they are free to enter dungeons. Concerned, Yuma asks about where Ayano's salary will be coming from and gets informed that the Dungeon Management Bureau is responsible for it. Hearing this, Yuma figures that it wouldn't be a good idea to investigate her further and decides to pay her salary as well, allowing Ayano to accept whatever the Bureau pays her as well. When Ayano tries to argue, Yuma calls it a token of his gratitude. Afterward, Ayano asks what she should do now, and Yuma lets her know that since they haven't established themselves yet, there is no work to do, but she can prepare the paperwork till then. While she begins working on the documents, Yuma realizes that Ayano will be handling these sorts of tasks. Chika will be handling the online stuff. Snow will be their top earner, and just like before, he is going to be a useless idiot. Just then, he receives a text from Chika, letting him know that she has arrived. As soon as she enters the house, Chika begins staring at Ayano quite intensely and mentions how she not only has great looks but also an insane figure. When Yuma asks what is up, she lets him know that they will need to use Ayano as well. At the start, Snow can appear in the videos, but even if she is a beauty, people might start to get bored with her. At that time, everything is going to be solved once they introduce Ayano. After giving it some more thought, Yuma realizes that both these girls are incredibly gorgeous. Snow has that elegant, untouchable vibe that makes one think that she's out of their league. On the other hand, Ayano is cute in a way that makes people want to talk to her. In the end, he understands that they will add Ayano to the videos to attract an audience that Snow won't be able to reach. This whole conversation gives Yuma an idea, and he asks Chika to appear in the videos as well. When she asks the reason behind his decision, Yuma lets her know that if they are choosing girls based on their looks, Chika is a pretty great choice. Hearing this comes from Yuma brings a smile to her face, and she agrees to do it if he wants it done. The following day, Yuma talks to Ayano about how easy it is to start a company, and figures that it's probably because the Dungeon Management Bureau laid the groundwork for them. As the two of them are about to get on the train, Ayano notices that it's pretty crowded and starts to panic. This makes Yuma wonder if she's not good with crowds, but Ayano reassures him that she will be fine. Once they board the train, Yuma makes sure to stand in front of Ayano to protect her from the crowd. She thanks him by calling him boss, but gets told by Yuma not to call him that, as just Yuma is fine. She agrees and asks Yuma to call her Ayano as well. Suddenly, the train shakes, causing Yuma to get a bit too close for comfort to Ayano. Flustered, Yuma reassures her that it wasn't on purpose. However, even after apologizing, he is unable to move away due to the crowd behind him. In his mind, Yuma thinks about how it's not like he's trying to purposefully connect their chests, but he doesn't have any other choice. Afterward, he notices Ayano putting her hand on him, making him think if he is hurting her somehow. However, once she looks up, Yuma sees the embarrassed look on her face, making him a bit turned on. Nonetheless, Yuma eventually looks away, thinking about how it's wrong to look at a struggling person with such lustful eyes. Just then, he notices an old lecher trying to get a creep shot of Ayano, and he instantly grabs his arm. The geezer freaks out and questions what Yuma is doing, and gets told by Yuma to get off at the next stop. After getting out of the train, Ayano apologizes to Yuma for getting him caught up in such a mess, but Yuma tells her not to worry, as it was that guy's fault. Hearing this, Ayano begins to tear up, prompting Yuma to pat her head without thinking much. After realizing what he just did, Yuma instantly apologizes for doing that, but to his surprise, Ayano lets him know that she didn't hate it. Confused, he wonders if she's not feeling well, to which Ayano disagrees, telling Yuma that it's quite the opposite, as it felt quite nice. In the end, Ayano is unable to handle the situation any longer and runs away, letting him know that she has to use the restroom. After returning home, Yuma sees Snow's lifeless body lying on the couch, while Chika notices Ayano hiding behind Yuma. Curious, she asks if something happened, and with a face redder than a tomato, she reassures Chika that nothing happened. Meanwhile, Yuma begins poking Snow, asking Chika what is up with her. She lets him know that they just finished filming for the video and questions if they want to see. Hearing this, Snow instantly gets up and refuses to let them watch it. Although she doesn't mind Ayano watching it, Snow can't let Yuma watch it for some reason. This makes Chika remind her that the video will be released to the public anyway, and how excited she was for it. Frustrated, Snow blames Chika for hyping her up while Yuma wonders if it's because Snow is doing something embarrassing in the video, like making a teaser for her OnlyFans. Believing that this might be it, he tells Chika not to release something that might get them banned, which makes her smirk and mock Yuma for always having his mind in the gutter. Nonetheless, she plays the video for them to watch, and it starts off by Snow introducing herself and telling everyone that she has conquered a dungeon. Furthermore, she shows her abilities, which makes Yuma wonder if it's okay to share all this information. Chika lets him know that it's fine because it would seem she's lying if she just told everyone about conquering a dungeon without any proof. Afterward, music starts playing in the video, followed by Snow dancing and moving her hips to the beat. Once the video ends, Yuma gives Chika a high five, promising to give her a bonus because of how great the video turned out to be. When Snow argues that they don't need to use it, Yuma mentions that it's very important and requests to see it one more time. He then asks how Chika managed to get the footage of her smiling like that because it turned out surprisingly well. Ultimately, Snow gets enough of their reaction and starts bawling. On the other hand, Yuma thinks about how the editing technique and the subtitles are really good and compliments Chika for being really versatile. With a smile on her face, she tells Yuma that she can handle anything he throws at her. Following that, the girls enjoy themselves by having some snacks while Yuma gets a call from Yanagita, who inquires about the business. Yuma thanks him for sending Ayano, as she seems to be very capable. Afterward, Yanagita informs Yuma that the president, Mina, wishes to meet him again and asks if he's okay with it. Yuma agrees, telling him that he actually wanted to meet her as well and wonders what time works for her. Yuma gets informed that Mina is actually headed off to a dungeon, and he will call him once she returns. Once he's done with the call, Yuma returns to where the girls are and witnesses a drunk version of Ayano, inviting him to drink with them as well. Since the other girls are totally wasted as well, Yuma advises her to stop drinking, but she argues that she can still go on for some more. Although Yuma has already popped his cherry, he is still nervous about drinking alone with women. Just then, Ayano comes up to him, asking if he hits the gym, to which he refuses and tries his best to stay calm. Ayano then mentions that he has some pretty impressive muscles and ends up hugging his arm. This makes Yuma realize that, at this point, Ayano is basically asking for it since she's really pressing her jingle bells against him. Furthermore, Ayano tells Yuma that it's just the two of them now and starts getting close to his face. After he is done with the deed, Yuma leaves the room and is told by Chika that she saw everything. Shocked, he questions Chika about how long she has been here, only to be told by her that it would have been hard not to notice those freaky noises coming from the room. Following that, she gives him a hug and mentions that it's not fair that he's only doing it with Yano. Before Yuma gets the chance to say something, she tells him good night and runs away, making him wonder what all that was about. The next morning, Snow and Yuma pay a visit to the weapon shop, where Snow is shocked to see them selling all these cool weapons. Yuma informs her that one needs to have a license to own it. Curious, Snow wonders if he has one and gets told that he acquired one when he was pretty young. However, none of these weapons work unless they are brought inside a dungeon and questions Snow about the kind of weapons she generally uses. Snow lets him know that she doesn't need any weapons or armor and says that he should not either. Confused, Yuma asks her to explain, and Snow replies by saying that these are magical tools that are powered by magical cores, but none of them are powerful. For people like Yuma who already have magic powers, they would be nothing but a hindrance. While checking out an armor, Yuma regrets not having such basic information and wonders if his current body is actually stronger than the armor in front of him. Additionally, he thinks about how there are many kinds of armor and weapons, which are all the things one might need inside a dungeon. Suddenly, the boss monster from before appears in his mind, and Yuma ends up buying some protectors. On their way back, they visit the Shinjuku dungeon. Apparently, it first appeared when dungeons started popping up all over the world. Although it's a decade old, nobody has been able to conquer it, as it's said to be pretty hard. The first floor is now purely a leisure area, and the dungeon has been mapped all the way to floor 7. It's the basic type of dungeon where monsters get stronger according to how deeper the floor is. After learning about everything there is, she suggests making their goal to reach floor 10. Not only that, but Snow believes that if they were to run into a boss room, they would be able to take care of it as well. Before long, they manage to enter the dungeon and are shocked by how interesting it looks. Yuma mentions how the inside of the dungeon looks like a regular town, and Snow informs him that every dungeon has a difficulty rating. However, Yuma lets her know that their world doesn't have anything like that since they just describe it as easy or hard. He then questions how one can tell the difficulty, to which Snow replies by saying that after a while, he will be able to tell as soon as he enters the dungeon, but there are some telltale signs to look for. One of the signs is that if the contents of the dungeon are affected by its location, then it's a second-level dungeon or higher, so this dungeon they are in must be a second level or higher. Still confused, Yuma asks her about what these levels even mean, and gets told by Snow that the dungeon they met was above level 4, but below level 3. If she's right about that, then the boss of this dungeon is going to be a lot stronger than the golem from before. Before Yuma even realizes, they end up entering the 5th floor, which reminds him that even veteran explorers struggle after this floor. But every monster they have come across was easily defeated by Snow. She then tells Yuma to fight some monsters as well if all they are facing are some weak orcs and goblins. Moreover, Yuma's magical energy can increase even if Snow beats the monsters, but it's way more efficient if he does it himself. Knowing that the difficulty increases as they go down, Yuma mentions how they should have done it from the 1st floor. Nonetheless, he decides to do it, unaware that Snow can easily tell how scared he is. Just then, Snow notices some movement nearby and informs Yuma that something is coming. Soon after, a giant orc appears in front of them, which is twice Yuma's size. However, Snow completely ignores it and focuses on one of the buildings that was mentioned in the book Yuma has in his room. Nonetheless, the orc doesn't seem to care and swings his arm to strike Yuma down. Being the pathetic wimp he is, Yuma covers his face, but luckily, Snow manages to protect him by attacking the orc's arm, causing it to fall to the ground and roll around in pain. Using this time, Snow reminds Yuma that he needs to fight back in order to win. But before he even knows it, the orc is back on its feet and is about to attack Yuma. But to its surprise, it doesn't back down this time and kicks the orcs in its stomach, bringing it down for good. With a smile on her face, Snow lets Yuma know that he will need to practice more as they continue down the dungeon. After some time, they manage to reach the last place that is mapped, and Snow suggests finding a place to rest. Concerned, he wonders if they need a lookout while they sleep, and gets reminded by Snow that there are safe spots in the dungeon. Luckily, there is a hotel right in front of them, and when Yuma wonders why she decided to rest there, Snow lets him know that she can feel magical energy there. Yuma, who knows the reality of this hotel, makes up his mind to act confident, but as soon as they enter the room, Snow questions about the kind of hotel this is. She then yells at him, showing him an adult version of a water balloon, asking why a hotel has something like this. Having no other choice, he explains to Snow that this isn't an ordinary hotel but a place called a love hotel where couples go to make out and do the deed. Furious, she yells at Yuma for not telling her sooner, even though he knew everything about it. Having no other choice, he admits his mistake and reassures Snow that he wasn't trying to deceive her or anything. Nonetheless, she then begins complaining about the room being too flashy and questions why there are so many huge mirrors everywhere. Yuma, who understands the reason behind these mirrors, begins to smirk, causing her to throw those rubber balloons at his face. Nevertheless, Yuma enters the bathroom and is glad to see that there's a bathtub. Furthermore, the water seems to be working even inside the dungeon. Taking advantage of this opportunity, he decides to take a bath, which, for some reason, makes Snow flustered. She gets beet red, thinking of many strange reasons, but Yuma ignores her reaction and lets her know that he's going to head inside first. While taking off his clothes, Yuma thinks about how he had some hope of Snow joining him, but that didn't work out. Anyways, he begins taking a shower, and while he washes away the sweat, Yuma remembers his fight with that giant orc and how he managed to defeat it. Thinking about it makes him realize that he has gotten a lot stronger and figures that this must be the reason Snow was so carefree, even though he was up against a monster. However, Yuma isn't very satisfied with the win and thinks about how it was over so quickly that none of it felt real to him. All these thoughts make him wonder if he's just averse to fighting, but figures that he will surely get used to it with time. Just when Yuma is about to get out of the bath, he witnesses Snow entering the bathroom with a towel wrapped around to hold those humongous cannons. Shocked, Yuma starts to wonder what's going on, and Snow reminds him that he said he's going in first, which, to her understanding, means that she's expected to come in after. He hesitantly agrees, and seeing Snow stand there awkwardly, Yuma asks if she is expecting something, only to be told that she's most definitely not. Since she's already in the bathroom, he asks her to wash his back. Seeing just how embarrassed she got, Yuma informs her that it's more space-efficient to do it that way. Surprisingly, she agrees with him on this point and ends up agreeing to do it. But before starting, Snow gives Yuma a warning, telling him not to turn back or he's dead meat. Without wasting any time, she starts rubbing his back and while doing so, notices the muscles on his back. Curious, Snow asks if he has been training, to which he agrees. This makes Snow believe that this must be the reason Ayana was so love-struck. Moreover, she mentions that the two of them don't seem to have the other kind of relationship, and hearing this, Yuma panics and starts coughing. His reaction makes her suspicious, but Yuma manages to dismiss it. Following that, Yuma asks Snow if she likes muscles and gets told by her that it's better than not training at all. After some time, Yuma suggests switching positions and wants to wash her now. With that, he gets behind her and starts washing her back. Nonetheless, their happy time continues, and once they are done, Snow warns Yuma that if he does something like that again without her permission, she is going to freeze his little tool for good. Although Yuma apologizes in his mind, he doesn't have any regrets. Yuma then suggests taking a quick break before exploring the dungeon again, to which she agrees. After the break ends, they leave the hotel and notice a stairway leading down. Snow figures that this might take them to floor 10 and gets informed by Yuma that there is no information about floor 10 or 11, as no one has made it this far. Snow believes that there could be a boss on floor 10, and an 11th floor might not even exist. Although Yuma knows that he was able to defeat monsters on floors 8 and 9, he doesn't know what floor 10 might bring. Nonetheless, the two of them go down the staircase and enter a new floor. Instantly, Snow talks about there being multiple monsters. Moreover, she tells Yuma that they have already eliminated 20 of them, but he seems clueless about it since she did all the work herself. Curious, Yuma asks why there are so many monsters, and according to Snow, there could be a monster room nearby, which is a trap filled with several monsters. The other possibility is that these monsters are just small fries, and the real boss might be close. Just as Yuma starts thinking about the boss monster of a dungeon that hasn't been beaten in 10 years, a human-like figure with no head and a sword appears right behind them. Snow recognizes it as the boss, while Yuma wonders what kind of monster hierarchy this is. Just as the boss steps forward, Snow yells at Yuma to get down, and even though she creates a barrier using ice, the boss's sword comes terrifyingly close to Yuma's face. Frozen in fear, Snow tells Yuma to look out as the boss manages to break her barrier. At this point, Yuma has realized that even one hit from that sword will tear him to pieces. While Yuma is terrified, Snow doesn't seem to care that much, and in an instant, she completely freezes the dungeon boss. Shocked, Yuma thinks about how the boss made such a dramatic entrance which scared him, but in the end, the battle is already over. However, Snow lets him know that this won't be enough to put a stop to him, as this boss is capable of breaking out. Just as she said, the boss breaks the ice without putting much effort and instantly appears behind the two of them. Knowing what it is capable of, both of them figure that if they stay still, they would be cut in pieces. Having no other choice, Yuma makes a run for it, commenting on how dangerous it is, but Snow tells him to calm down, saying that it's not that big of a deal. Yuma argues by saying that although she's calling him an easy target, the boss still managed to break out of that ice, even though his body was completely frozen. Snow replies by saying that his sword seems pretty dangerous and asks Yuma to take his sword away from him. Shocked, he tells Snow that there's no way a bottom feeder like him can face an enemy like that. However, he gets told by Snow that his ability to control magic is pretty impressive. Moreover, Snow tells Yuma that if he were ready from the start, taking his sword away would have been simple for him. With that being said, she jumps on top of a building, leaving him alone with the boss. Afterward, she lets Yuma know that she will only help him out if he's really in deep trouble, but other than that, he will need to face the boss monster alone. Before Yuma even gets the chance to be mad at her, the boss appears right behind him, almost hitting him with a clean slash. Luckily, Yuma manages to dodge it in time and falls to the ground, realizing that the boss is scarier than he imagined. Following that, he notices a few metal pipes sitting next to him and ends up equipping one to fight the boss head-on. Nevertheless, Yuma is not confident in his abilities as he's aware that he has never practiced anything like kendo or judo. With that, the boss monster attacks him once again, and after managing to dodge the first strike, Yuma continues to dodge all the others as well. Eventually, he fails to do so and falls to the ground, realizing that he only managed to dodge them by a single step. Just then, a thought comes to his mind, and Yuma realizes that at first he couldn't even follow its movements, but now he can not only see them but also avoid the strikes. This reminds him of what Snow said about him having good control over his magic and figures that unless he's really thinking about fighting, his magic stays dormant. Now that he is actively focusing on dodging, Yuma is able to track the monster's movements, and because of that, dodging is an easy task. With that in mind, Yuma takes his fighting stance, wondering if he can take the sword away if he fights with that in mind. Afterward, the boss dashes towards him, and just in time, Yuma dodges the first strike and counterattacks by hitting the monster with his metal pipe. This causes the monster to drop his sword, prompting Yuma to celebrate. Moreover, Snow freezes his body once again and tells Yuma that taking his sword away was an easy task for him. Confused, Yuma mentions that her attack is different from before, as he is now frozen to the core. Furthermore, he confronts her for not doing that earlier and making him take his sword away. In reply, Snow hits him with a smug face, letting Yuma know that this is payback for doing whatever he wanted with her body. Later that day, the two of them return home, where Yuma is welcomed by Yano. With a bright red face, she mentions how he looks exhausted, making him realize that she seems to remember what happened behind closed doors. After that, he walks up to Chika, asking what she is up to, and gets told that she is dealing with comments and business offers. Yano elaborates by saying that they already put the video out this morning. Snow intervenes, asking if she deleted the dancing part, but Chika replies by saying that she definitely left it in. While she tortures Chika, Yuma wonders how many comments they have on the video. Yano shows him the number 3 with her fingers, causing all the excitement to get off Yuma's face. However, she goes on to say that they actually got around 300,000 comments. Surprised, Yuma screams, saying how there are so many of them. Not only that, but Ayano also adds that the number is going up every time she refreshes. Confused, Snow wonders if it's a lot, to which Yuma agrees. Chika figures that it will probably go viral tomorrow if it's already getting these kinds of interactions today. Last time she checked, it already got around 1 million retweets, and even a fan club was made for it. Yuma then inquires her about the business offers and gets told by Chika that it's all sponsorships, mostly from cosmetic companies. In the end, she gets tired and shuts down the laptop, saying that she can't keep up with it. According to Chika, replying to the comments is like trying to fill the river with one bucket at a time. Nonetheless, Yuma then questions her about the total views, and according to Ayano, they are already past 40 million. There were so many people watching it that the servers went down around noon, so the actual number might be even higher. Afterward, Chika asks Yuma about how things went on his end and gets informed by Snow that they managed to conquer the Shinjuku dungeon, which catches the two baddies by surprise. They start talking about it being even more impressive than getting 100 million views in a day, and people will surely keep talking about it for the next year. Yano couldn't believe it as they left in the morning and already managed to beat it before the day ended. Snow adds by saying that if they exclude all the extra stuff, it only took around 3 hours. Just then, Ayano starts feeling lightheaded out of nowhere and faints, but luckily, her knight in shining armor is present there to catch her. Afterward, Chika walks up to Yuma, takes his lollipop, kisses it, and shoves it in his mouth. Confused, he asks the reason behind it and gets told by Chika that it was his reward for good work. Suddenly, the thought of it being an indirect kiss comes to his mind, but he dismisses it because it seems a pretty dumb thing to ask. Eventually, Snow intervenes, asking how long Yuma plans on holding Ayano. He reassures her that it's just medical assistance, which she finds hard to believe. The following day, Chika and Ayano visit Yuma's house, informing him that they will be posting the second video. Yuma mentions how it's quite a thing to say as she walks in the door and gets told by Chika that it's bad to leave a big gap between videos. While he understands her thought process, Yuma asks them about the first video and gets asked by Ayano if he hasn't seen the news. Curious, Yuma turns on the television and sees every news channel talking about the Shinjuku dungeon being conquered, along with the fact that someone named the White Fairy is responsible for it. Moreover, they also discuss the viral video with over 700 million views worldwide. Yuma figures that Snow must be the White Fairy they are talking about. Chika informs him that all of the shows are saying that they are unable to get in contact with the White Fairy's office, and since she already expected this to happen, Chika unplugged the phone line. Even after all this has happened, Yuma wonders if she still wants to upload another video, to which Chika replies by saying that this is the best time. Simultaneously, Snow appears, wearing nothing but an oversized shirt and greets everyone by saying good morning. Yuma lets her know that they are thinking of uploading another video and asks what she thinks about taking Ayano and Chika to the next dungeon they visit. When Snow questions the reason behind it, Yuma tells her that he wants them to awaken some sort of magical powers so they can be strong enough to protect themselves from down-bad degenerates like him. To their surprise, Chika mentions that she has been to a dungeon before, and so has Ayano. Snow also adds that there are only a few people with enough magical energy to enhance their abilities, and although she can show Chika and Ayano the ropes, they still won't be strong enough and will probably need the trusty pepper spray for protection. Ultimately, she concludes that they will be fine if they just stay here, and Yuma argues by saying that the girls can't just stay at the house forever. An idea pops into Chika's mind, and she suggests living in the house if that can solve the problem. She further adds by saying that the house is the safest place right now and tries to manipulate Yuma by saying that it's important for him to keep them safe. Just then, Ayano intervenes, saying that she would also like to live in the house, adding to Yuma's shock. Luckily, Snow doesn't seem to mind and mentions that they can just turn this into a shared living space. Thinking about living with 3 bad chicks instantly causes Yuma to get bricked, only for him to be reminded by Snow that he will be the first to go if he causes any sort of trouble. Nonetheless, Chika then asks Snow if using magic is easy, to which she agrees. Following that, Ayano gives magic a go and manages to light up a small flame. Chika, who is still trying, is a bit frustrated over Yano getting it first and gets told by Snow, who's demonstrating fire magic, that anyone can do it if they put enough work. Yuma is surprised to see her use fire magic, as he thought she was an ice spirit, to which Snow replies by saying that while her fire magic isn't on the same scale as ice, it's still enough to burn everything around her. Ultimately, Chika manages to do it as well, and once the girls have mastered it, Snow decides to teach them something more practical, which they can use for self-defense. Meanwhile, Yuma thinks about how not even the Dungeon Administration Bureau seems to know about this kind of magic. Unexpectedly, he then receives a call from Yanagita, but after picking up the call, he hears Mina on the other end. She asks him not to be so formal and just call her by her first name. When Yuma mentions that it's Yanagita's phone, Mina lets him know that she doesn't have her own phone since she's pretty bad with technology. Since she wanted to talk to him, Mina decided to borrow his phone for some time. On the other hand, knowing that she is Japan's first dungeon conqueror, Yuma gets a bit nervous talking to her. Nonetheless, he questions the stuff she wants to talk about, and gets told by Mina that they are getting complaints about people having difficulty reaching their company. However, Mina is sure that they are dealing with their own situation, and because of that, she suggests making a deal. For that, Mina invites him to the Dungeon Administration office in the afternoon by himself. Once the call ends, Yuma starts to panic as he figures that Mina is most likely mad at him. Having no other choice, he arrives at the bureau, wondering if he could pass their test, considering how he was rejected before. One of the employees present takes him to the testing area. Apparently, part of the test includes being able to defeat one's opponent because, in order to be an explorer, a person needs combat ability. Moreover, the test seems to have some tough opponents, but since explorers were able to pass, he figures that the Bureau's explorer must be strong. While Yuma wonders about the reason he was taken to the training area, Mina appears right behind him, freaking him out. She asks him not to be so scared of her, while Yuma notices that Mina is wearing the Bureau's Special Explorer combat uniform. She informs him that it is stab and bulletproof, but he can't take his mind off how seductive it is. She further tells Yuma that she also brought one for him, but seeing his magical energy, he might not need it. After that, Mina asks him to pick up a weapon, causing Yuma to remind her that they were supposed to talk about issues people are having reaching them. To his shock, Mina informs him that it was just an excuse and all she wanted was to have a match with him. When Yuma asks her the reason she wants to fight, Mina replies by saying that Snow seems pretty strong, but according to her, he might be even stronger, which is why she is eager to fight him. Ultimately, he agrees but can't wrap his head around the fact that he will be sparring against the first dungeon conqueror of Japan. Before they begin, Mina explains that the match will be best of 3, and landing a hit on the vitals will be considered victory. With that, the battle begins, and just as Yuma prepares to attack her, Mina disappears faster than his dad, who went to buy milk, and taps on his shoulder with her weapon, telling Yuma that she won the first round. Yuma believes that if he can enhance his abilities using magic, he might be able to close the skill gap, but seeing her move so fast that he can't even see, it seems impossible to him. Mina then tells him that she made it best of 3 to see the surprised look on his face, and reassures Yuma that she will explain her abilities so the next 2 rounds won't be as boring. Mina then explains to him that she used her skill the moment he blinked his eyes, causing him to wonder just what kind of skill she can use in that amount of time. He then mentions that it seems unbeatable, to which Mina agrees, telling him that she has never lost to another human. Although Yuma doesn't like fighting, he gets motivated to win after hearing the word unbeatable. With that, he dashes towards her, planning to be even faster than before, but this time, she jumps in the air and pins him down to the ground. At this point, Yuma is unsure about what just happened, but one thing he knows is that he has more magical energy than she does. This means he should be stronger, but in reality, she keeps on playing with him. Eventually, he tells Mina to go another round, but this time, he asks her not to stop before hitting his vitals and follows all the way through. No matter how hard she tries, Yuma is sure that a bamboo stick won't be enough to eliminate him. Hearing this makes Mina realize that he must be planning on countering her, and she agrees since Mina believes this will be interesting. Yuma then tells her that they can start whenever she's ready, and when she agrees, the battle begins, and in an instant, she disappears from his sight. Suddenly, he notices the bamboo stick stopping just before hitting him and figures that this must be a fake-out. But as soon as she grabs the stick, Mina lets go of it. After that, he gets hit from the side and then from above, but surprisingly, it didn't hurt Yuma at all. He then starts to wonder what might be her next move, but realizes soon after that thinking about it won't help. With that, Yuma closes his eyes and starts focusing on his surroundings. This results in him managing to grab Mina's arm with his eyes closed. Mina is caught by surprise thanks to this move, and using this opportunity, Yuma prepares to punch her, but stops right before hitting her. He then mentions that this counts as a point for him, and gets asked by Mina about how he saw through her movements. According to Yuma, he somehow sensed her using his skin. Since she was moving at an impressive speed, her movement pushed the air and caused a breeze. He took advantage of this and sensed the breeze right before her attack reached him. Additionally, Mina could have slowed down enough for Yuma not to feel it, which is why he asked her not to hold back. Moreover, Yuma could detect her movement by sound, but due to her presence concealment, he couldn't hear or see Mina at all. She is surprised to hear all that and gets told by Yuma that he can hear someone coming. Just then, Yanagita opens the door, frustrated, asking Mina if she's here. Luckily, he doesn't see her because Mina didn't waste any time burying Yuma in her milkers and using the concealment skill. She asks Yuma to be quiet, or they will get caught since her skill doesn't work that well on others. However, it's hard for a gooner like him to stay calm, considering he can feel those soft things rubbing against him. Ultimately, Yanagita leaves and Mina mentions that Yuma's movements were unstable, and his breathing is heavy, which makes her wonder if his sausage was up and about. Furthermore, she talks about knowing that there was someone stronger than her, but she had never met them. Since this is the first time she has lost to another human being, she is also somewhat excited. Although the two of them have fought, Mina feels like she still doesn't understand the extent of his strength and wishes to see how far it can really go. Afterward, Mina questions how he can fight against monsters if he can't fight seriously against humans, and wonders if he has heard about the dungeon at Kyujiukuri Beach. This reminds Yuma that the dungeon is like the Shinjuku dungeon, which also appeared 10 years ago. It's a dungeon that conforms to its surroundings and is said to have a very high difficulty, enough that it hasn't been conquered in those 10 years. Mina then suggests going to the dungeon tomorrow and doesn't mind if he brings Snow along. She is not so keen on going after the boss and is okay with just beating some small fries instead. Concerned, Yuma asks if her work will be okay with that, and after thinking about it, she lets him know that it'll probably be fine. Later at home, Snow questions where Yuma went and gets told that he went to run an errand for the bureau. He then asks Snow if she wants to go to a dungeon tomorrow, and when she asks him about it, Yuma informs her that it's the Kyujiukuri dungeon. Seeing that Snow doesn't know much about it, Yuma explains that it's high difficulty and turns into the ocean inside. Once hearing this, Snow refuses to go and says that if he's not fighting the boss, then it shouldn't be a problem for him to handle it alone. This makes Yuma realize that she probably doesn't know how to swim, causing Snow to get embarrassed and yell at Yuma, telling him that she can swim just fine as long as she has a floaty. Nonetheless, he figures that it'll be just him and Mina, and hearing that, Snow mentions that she's pretty competent and is sure that he should be fine with her. The next morning, Yuma meets up with Mina and begins staring at her dress. Mina questions if he thought she would be wearing a swimsuit, to which Yuma agrees, saying that she'll probably look good in it. But to his surprise, she turns away, telling him not to flatter her. Once they are inside the dungeon, Mina comments on how it's pretty romantic as the first floor seems pretty safe. Moreover, she says that with just the two of them, it feels like a date, and Yuma replies by saying that it would be a dream of every guy to go on a date with someone as pretty as her. Mina gets flustered hearing that and asks him not to joke in the dungeon. Nonetheless, Yuma then mentions that they have handled all the weak monsters, and the real problem now is the boss-level monsters. Mina agrees, saying that they are too tough for her, and she has only beaten one of them solo before. She further says that the boss is an octopus-like monster that stays in the water, which makes it harder to eliminate. After that, Yuma asks her about how things were 10 years ago, and adds the fact that Mina is not on any shows or movies, and it feels like she would have been a child 10 years ago. With a smile on her face, she agrees, telling him that she was probably a child back then. And in reality, Yanagita was in charge of the raid, and she was just the combat specialist. Curious, he asks if she was strong back then, and gets told that Mina inherited the family's sword style, but couldn't join any tournaments because of the family's tradition. When a small dungeon appeared nearby, she decided to take this opportunity and test herself. Moreover, there were many times when she felt she might die since she was inexperienced. Their equipment was bad, and their skill levels were low. Hearing this, Yuma apologizes for bringing up bad memories, but she doesn't seem to mind and suggests exploring further. Just then, the two of them notice something, and just in time, Yuma grabs Mina and saves her from the octopus attack. She tells him to worry about himself, as she can dodge it, but makes sure to thank him. As they continue to dodge the attacks, Yuma wonders why the boss is on this floor and realizes that Mina has already cut one of the tentacles. While he's lost in thought, Mina cuts one of the tentacles aimed at him and gets told by Yuma to run, as he believes he can handle it alone. However, she refuses to leave him behind. At this point, Yuma starts to wonder what he can do to help and remembers Snow's magic lesson. He then asks Mina to buy him 2 minutes, and using this time, he repeats everything Snow taught him during the lesson at home. Thanks to that, he somehow manages to light a flame and throws it towards the octopus. In a state of panic, the octopus retreats into the ocean, and when Mina praises this move, Yuma mentions that he might not be able to do it again. He then notices that his hand was burned while using the flame magic. But the two of them even get the chance to run away. Mina senses something and pushes him away, only to get caught by the octopus instead. She tells him to run and gets dragged into the water by the octopus. This reminds Yuma of the situation he was in with Snow when she told him to run away as well. However, Snow was with him back then, but now he's alone and not capable of doing anything. Even though he can't fight the way Snow does, he is a summoner and remembers the skill he was granted by the book. Using that, he uses the summon skill once again and manages to summon another spirit. To make sure everyone is right, Yuma asks if she's a spirit, to which she agrees. He then informs her that there's a boss monster in the water, asking if she can beat it. However, she mentions that it's impossible, as with a temporary contract, she can't do much. Knowing that there's not enough time for him to play 7 minutes in heaven with her, he asks the spirit to create an opening and push the water away. Using wind magic, she somehow pushes the water away, revealing the octopus and allowing Mina to finally take a breath. Yuma then runs at the octopus and shoves his hand inside its body. After concentrating and putting enough magical energy in his arms, Yuma starts cutting the octopus's body using his bare hand, causing the octopus to let go of Mina. Luckily, he manages to catch her, but notices that Mina has already passed out. However, the octopus doesn't back off and tries attacking him, but just in time, the spirit cuts its tentacles in half using her wind magic. Yuma is shocked by her power, and using the chance she created, he runs at the octopus and after shoving his hand inside once again, uses flame magic. Although it does some damage to its body, Yuma realizes that this alone won't be enough. His whole arm is now severely burnt, and just as Yuma is about to make another move, the spirit interrupts, asking him to let her take care of it. With that, she introduces herself as Wendy and begins using her wind magic, informing Yuma that while it's impossible for her to defeat the monster on her own, it is possible to do so if she combines her wind magic with Yuma's flame magic. Just like that, Wendy manages to envelop the giant octopus in flames using the power of wind and ultimately defeats it. Surprised, Yuma asks if he can just call her Wendy and adds the fact that she saved his life. Wendy agrees, telling Yuma that his thanks are unnecessary since she is his property. Yuma then apologizes for making her do so much right after summoning her and gets told by Wendy that it's her job. Following that, the two of them check up on Mina and find out that she has 7 broken ribs, both arms fractured, and torn muscles. If Wendy tries healing her, she won't have enough energy left to heal Yuma's burnt arm, but Yuma doesn't seem to care about that and asks her to just heal Mina instead. Without wasting any time, the healing process begins, and soon after, Mina starts getting the colors in her face back. Once she is done with Mina, Wendy informs Yuma that she can heal him right away if the two of them make a contract. but Yuma dismisses this thought for the moment since he knows Snow will probably get mad. Nonetheless, he decides to head back for the time being, saying that Snow can get him healed up. Hearing this, Wendy asks if he said Snow, to which Yuma agrees, telling her that she is an ice spirit. To his shock, Wendy informs him that she is actually her sister. After returning home, Snow comes running out of the house, calling Wendy's name. With tears in her eyes, she hugs her older sister, and Wendy mentions that the thing they have been wishing for has finally arrived. Afterward, Wendy asks what she was doing at home, and when Snow argues that she can't swim, she gets scolded by her sister for being a pitiful girl who ran away from her weakness. Moreover, she informs Snow that if Yuma had failed to summon her, he would have probably died. Lastly, she asks Snow to heal Yuma already, to which she agrees. Snow then apologizes to Yuma for not going with him, and after seeing the look on her face, he reassures her that she couldn't have known that would happen, asking Snow not to let it get to her. Following that, Yuma checks up on Mina, who is currently sleeping, and asks the girls about Snow. They inform him that she is currently making dinner while getting scolded by her sister. As Yuma sits between the two of them, Chika gets curious and asks if Wendy is a spirit too. Yuma agrees, telling her that he summoned her today and notices that the news is still talking about the Shinjuku incident, which makes him wonder just what might happen if news about this new dungeon gets out. While thinking about that, he falls asleep and later wakes up, only to find himself sleeping on his bed. Just then, Wendy enters the room in her pajamas and informs him that it's 2 in the morning. She decides to wipe off his sweat but gets told by Yuma that if she gets any closer, he will have a reaction. Nonetheless, she removes the sheet and notices his Excalibur wide awake. Shockingly, she finds it pretty convenient and mentions that the two of them can finish making the contract. She then begins staring at Yuma, causing him to get lost in her eyes. Eventually, he compliments her for having pretty eyes, which makes Wendy ask if he knows the reason Snow has light-colored hair. Yuma figures that it's because she is an ice spirit, to which Wendy agrees. She further informs Yuma that spirits tend to gain physical characteristics that match their powers, which is why her eyes and hair are that color. The stronger the spirit, the more profound that effect is, and the eyes aren't particularly a strong trait. Hearing this makes Yuma realize that Snow is the stronger sister, but he makes sure to compliment Wendy for being pretty. Wendy mentions that the only ones who said that to her are her parents and sisters. Moreover, she informs him that Snow has told her a lot about him and said that they are lucky to have such a gentlemanly master. Judging by her reaction, Yuma gets surprised that this is all it takes for her to feel that good and asks if she heard about the caffeine from Snow. Wendy realizes that he noticed and informs him that she only had a bit of an energy drink. While they are having the time of their lives, Snow is getting a high-dimensional view from outside the room, and using this opportunity, she begins servicing herself. Just then, Yuma comes out, asking what she's doing watching them quietly. When she asks how he found out, Yuma explains that she didn't hide her magic. The following day, Mina asks Yuma if he wants to get a family register for Wendy as well, to which he agrees. Just then, Wendy appears, informing Yuma that she and Snow actually have 2 more sisters. Mina comments on how if he's so strong with 2 of them, he might be able to achieve world domination. Moreover, she wants to discuss the appearance of that boss and asks if they know anything about it. Snow replies by saying that even for the spirits, there are a lot of mysteries, as this world is different from the world they came from. Yuma then interrupts, asking Snow to teach him some more magic, as the fire magic is a bit rough since it hurts him. Snow blames it on his abnormally high volume of magic energy and agrees to gradually teach him more. Yuma mentions that he's sure she can figure it out with her sister's help, causing her to get a bit annoyed. Mina adds by saying that he has now cleared 2 dungeons that weren't beaten in 10 years, and figures that it would have been better if she weren't there, as she was only in his way. Yuma tells her that he would have probably died if he were alone. Mina thanks him for saying that and decides to train so she can catch up with him. Afterward, Chika appears, asking for the magic stone he got from the boss, and Wendy hands it over to her. Seeing the size of it, the girls figure that it might be hard to find a seller for it, and when Yuma suggests selling it to the bureau, Chika says that they could even sell it to another corporation. Not only that, but selling it to another government is also a solid idea. The only country that comes to Yuma's mind is the United States, as they have a government-scale budget. But as it's hard to make a deal with another government, Chika decides to keep it as an option for the future. Once that is settled, Chika wishes to get Wendy into a video, and Wendy mentions that the old videos make sense since her sister is pretty cute. Yano agrees, saying that even the second video got 1 million views in only 10 minutes. Chika then asks Yuma to help her make the next video, telling him that there's a lot of stuff, like shopping, which he can help with. Yuma agrees, asking her to tell him whatever she helps, causing her to smile and rest her head on him. Just then, they all see the news about a skyscraper dungeon appearing in Lowe's Angels, which has a death and missing person count exceeding 1,000 people. Chika figures that this was a transformation of an existing dungeon, which makes Yuma realize that things might start to go extremely wrong.